Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel and the Coach Bob Shipley. It's time for, can't believe it's our last grades edition of the regular season, but hey, a heck of a one it is. Texas 27, Texas A&M 17. We'll get to the grades here in just a second, but this edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by our friends at Allegiant Digital Marketing. Did you know that among the top 9 challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones include finding customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation? What if I could point you to a local homegrown agency here in Austin that could solve those problems for your business once and for all? For over 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing founder and CEO Chad Markham, a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Bootcamp at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to learn more today. All right, let's get right to it, Coach. We'll start with the quarterback. I said on the quick reacts last night with CJ that a workmanlike night for Arch. It wasn't a masterpiece, but it was effective when he needed to be. What's your grade for Arch last night, Coach?
Yeah, it was just a gutsy performance, one that I had was anticipating, hopefully anticipating. Not great stats in terms of completion percentage and so forth, but I thought, when you go in and you beat the number 3 team in the country with so much hype around that game and the rivalry and all those things, he didn't do everything perfect, but I think he deserves an A because he made it happen when it had to, and the receivers let him down a couple of times, but I didn't see any glaring mistakes that he made. Really, I mean, a couple of misfires, but we've come to expect that.
Yeah, I was thinking, maybe a B plus somewhere in that area for Arch. CJ, what say you?
Yeah, I was kind of in that B area. Coach, you mentioned it. No mistakes, no turnovers in a game like this. We've come to also expect that in big games for Arch Manning, is he protects the football very well. You mentioned workmanlike. I'll call it gritty. The ability to use his legs the way that he did. Texas had no success really on third downs in the first half, except for Arch Manning using his legs. And look, he starts 5 of 17 throwing the football. He ends 8 of 11. He got better as the game went on, and I would have to imagine that the running game, his legs also added up and really played a role in that. But you see once again, and this has to be the priority number 1 in the offseason, when he's given time to throw the football, he's a great quarterback. And life is really difficult for college quarterbacks when they're getting pressured up the gut immediately. And there was a lot of that in the first half. Adjustments were made, and I thought he played a very inspiring second half there. So a B plus for me as well, Jeff.
Yeah, look, I'll end it with this. No quarterback that's ever played this game is perfect. I don't care if you're talking about high school quarterbacks, talking about VY and Colt at Texas, or shoot Tom Brady, Joe Montana, pick your NFL quarterback. They need guys around them to play well. But Arch is getting to the point where he's elevating guys around him, number 1, and number 2. And his ability to process and make decisions is where you need it to be for your quarterback to be top notch. Coach, speaking of top notch, as we get to the running backs, I'm going to this grade's probably through the roof for me. If you'd have told me Trey Wisner rushed for $155, I'd say, man, Texas probably wins by 30. They won by double digits, but Coach, I didn't see this. Now, I don't know if any of us saw this coming from the run game last night.
No, I didn't either. In fact, CJ and I were visiting about that off air, just, really kind of hurting for CJ Baxter that he hasn't been able to regain his, his health the way that it should be. But as CJ pointed out to me, that's not really his running style, but it fits Trey Wisner very well. Yeah, it's a solid A for me, A plus. It's just a head scratcher, why this line and running backs are not in sync like that more often they are is just a mystery to me. But I'm still fired up after this game. There's a lot of hoot and hollering going on at Jordan Shipley's house last night. I promise you that. It was nuts. Little kids high-fiving. I mean, it was crazy. And so I'm still a little bit on the hype train. So my grades may be a little higher than normal, but we beat. Hey, is Arch the only Texas quarterback to ever beat OU, Arkansas, and A&M in the same season? Is that correct?
I think he's the 5th. Quinn did it a year ago. And there were a couple others. I think Texas Athletics tweeted it out last night. What I will say, I think it's the first year Texas has beat those three teams in back-to-back seasons since 69 and 70. So Texas accomplished something there that they hadn't done in 55 years. Pretty remarkable stuff.
Yeah. So that's the reason I'm on my hype train this morning. So y'all excuse me while I gloat.
No, you do all the gloating you want, Coach. I know Colt did it in 08, but obviously Arkansas wasn't in the conference at that point. So special night. By the way, I'll just throw this in there. I don't know if anybody's picked up on it. As a starter in games at DKR, Arch Manning's 8-0 at home.
Oh, wow.
And he's got a pretty big one coming up, game 2 of 2026 when Ohio State comes to town. So just file that away for off-season fodder. But CJ, the running back you and I talked about during the quick reacts, the game to me completely flipped on the Wisner 48-yard run. And to Coach's point, we haven't seen it a ton this year, but I thought the game Sark called was one of the few times this year where we've seen he called schemes that the offensive line could handle that really fit what your backs could do. The running game was more in sync than we've seen it in a really long time going back to last year.
Oh, it was a fantastic performance by the running back. Trey Wisner, again, he just does what he does against A&M and Oklahoma. He dominates them. Another 155-yard performance. I'll say this, Coach. We talked about the outside zone and how that suits Trey's running ability, the patience, the vision, the ability to find holes as they open up later in the play. Texas on 9 attempts through the A-gap, according to PFF, 106 yards. They found something there that, again, really hasn't been something that we've consistently seen. And maybe it's just having to play A&M in Oklahoma to get it out of them. But, hey, if that's going to be the case and they're going to run for 218 yards, sign me up. So it's an A for me. Trey Wisner, again, they called him a warrior in the press conference. I'll call him a Longhorn legend for 4 performances like this against 2 rivals.
No doubt. He's probably in that, Peter Gardere, Fozzie Whitaker, folk hero kind of role for Texas now, for a generation of Texas fans. And I was happy for him to have a big yardage game because all the other stuff he's done this year, we've seen him grow as a pass protector. I mean, he's really rounded himself into a complete running back this year. So I was really happy for him from a yardage standpoint. Coach, this is another odd one. As we get to the receivers, and here for grades, we group wide receivers and tight ends. Man, I didn't have Jack Indries leading you with 50 yards after the catch last night, almost 100 yards. Quiet night for the wide receivers as a whole, but man, this game you needed somebody to step up for Arch. I thought going in it was going to be DeAndre Moore and Emmett Mosley, but it was Jack Indries. And then when we talk about the tight ends, you got to throw in Nick Townsend with a jet sweep on the goal line. None of us had that called. Coach, just a really special night for the tight end group, a tight end group that we've been hard on this year, but they showed up big time when they needed to last night.
Yeah. Nothing spectacular really from the receivers that we've seen a lot bigger plays from them. But yeah, I'm with you. The tight ends, probably lack of production from the receivers, probably a minus for me, maybe a B plus, but since I'm gloating, it's going to be an A minus. Yeah, just a good solid performance from them. Nothing spectacular, but it was solid. I felt like there were one, maybe 2 catches I felt like we could have made that we didn't, but they weren't, they weren't right in the breadbasket type throws, but I still feel like that we left a little bit out there.
Yeah, CJ, I'm gonna go with Coach. I'm gonna go with an A minus for these 2 reasons. One, the Nick Townsend jet sweep, you get extra credit for that. And then I thought on the Ryan Wingo touchdown, not the best ball Arch has ever thrown, but I thought Wingo went up and got it. Great body control. Even if he'd have caught that on Sunday, that still would have been a touchdown.
Yeah, that was a fantastic catch. And look, it's been a rocky season for Ryan Wingo. Obviously, it's been well documented, but plays like that are exactly why Texas continues to throw him the football. You mentioned it, 50 yards after the catch for Jack Indries, only 80 on the night for the Texas receivers as a whole. A&M did a great job of taking away the quick game. And I think when you take away the quick game, well, you start to struggle a little bit in getting the freebies. It wasn't until back the second half you started to see some quick RPOs from Sark. I'll say this, getting the tight ends involved the way that they did and creating the mismatches the way that they did, hat tip. because that hasn't really been the case for Texas this year, right? They haven't utilized the tight ends like we've seen with a Gunnar Helm or Jatavian Sanders, but altogether, I'll give them an A-. The reason why it's not an A, and Coach, you could probably speak to this as well, there's a skill in drawing defensive pass interferences. And that's been an issue for Texas the entire year. There should have been probably 2 or 3 that should have been called even without selling a pass interference last night. But you have to find a way to be an actor on that. I mean, wide receivers are diva. It should come as an innate skill, right? But that has to be something that improves later on, is fighting for the football through contact and forcing flags out of the officials' pockets. That could have helped Texas tremendously in the first half for me.
Yeah, Coach, I just want you to expand on that real quick, because I know Jackson's done some of the private training working with receivers. I know you've coached for a long time. Is that just as you get older, more confident, that's a skill you obtain? Because some veteran receivers, especially you watch on Sunday, if they even get a piece of cloth, they're looking at the official demanding the flag. Is that just something that as a guy gets older, he just naturally learns how to do it, or do you have to coach a guy to do that?
Yeah, I think both. I think both, but also I understand exactly what you're talking about, CJ, and I do agree with you. But at the same time, I think receivers don't want to be seen as crybabies.
Sure.
Yeah. And so the NFL scouts are looking at you and they go, "This guy's a crybaby. He's not very, So if you got to do it the right way, And I think it is something that you can work on, something that you can teach, and even if it's just just reaching behind you like they do in the flag. I've seen that pull a flag more than once. But I think the old flailing your arms and your legs as you're going down is always a good one.
Yeah. No, I compared to Coach. I had a baseball coach when I was young tell me, hey, when you got a bang play, guys trying to steal second. If you're the shortstop or the second baseman, 9 times out of 10, even if you didn't tag him, if you just get up and just show the ball to the umpire and just kind of do it like that towards him, 9 times out of 10 he'll call it just if you're real fired up about it. So, hey. It's there is no honor among thieves when we're talking about gaining those little extra yards, those little extra points in a game like this. And by the way, I'll add it on my political platform that I'm going to run on one day, where hey, your sack yardage shouldn't count against your rushing yardage. College football, you need to bring in the hash marks and you need to make the pass interference like the NFL does, where it's a spot foul. Because I mean, hey, Malik Muhammad took a really good penalty when he tripped up Casey Concepcion. Otherwise, that would have been a really long play for A&M. But I digress. Coach, we'll go to the offensive line and look.
Give my vote, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, CJ. It's good to have your support. You look A&M last night, Coach. They finished with 10 tackles for loss. They get 2 sacks, but I hate to sound like a homer, but I was just so proud of the offensive line, the Texas offensive line last night. And you watch some of those moments in the second half where guys are getting pancake blocks and they're making things happen. Coach, that's what happens when you have an offensive line that starts gaining confidence. And by the end of the game, you really saw some guys really start to come out of the shell and start making some really big plays for a team. It was really, really nice to see.
Yeah, it was. It was, it's just that mystery again. I just don't understand, why we can't play at that level every week. It's a B+ for me for the offensive linemen. I felt like it was their best performance of the year against a good front, against a good team in a pressure-packed situation. You give up a couple of sacks, you give up tackles for losses. That's not all on them. Some of those, maybe outside receivers missed their blocks or whatever. But I thought it was a good performance by them, and I felt like they played with a passion and with an aggression that we haven't seen anything like that yet this year, in my opinion. So, and I guess a lot of that just has to do with just, I don't want to say hating, but that's what it is. You're hating your rival, the opponent. You can't, everything they stand for just disgusts you because it's been brainwashed into your, and I'm sure the Aggies feel the same way when they play us. But I felt like the aggression was something that I want to see more of.
Yeah, CJ, we saw that aggression come out, and look, I'm gonna go with an A- for the offensive line, and for me, CJ, as much as we credit the line, and they did a great job, I felt like the game Sark called, hey, if Mike Elko's defense, if they're going to shoot gaps and they're going to jump around, let's use that against them. Let's use our pull schemes. Let's let them get upfield. You've got a guy in Trey Wisner who understands, has really good vision and patience running the football. I just felt it all worked like clockwork with the run game against A&M.
Yeah, I thought Sark, to your point, utilized his offensive line, maybe the best to his ability that we've seen this season, given obviously what we know about this offensive line. I was still sitting around probably a B or a B minus. And I say that because, look, the first half, you couldn't do anything. You had 3 points on the board. Anytime you dropped back, there was immediate pressure. You were 5 of 17 to start the game throwing the football, in large part because of interior pressure. But as the game went on, they got better, and that's only emphasized by the running game. I didn't hear Cassius Howell's name one time. There's a moment in which I even looked back at some of the replays to make sure he was on the field, and credit to the tackles. Brandon Baker has grown tremendously into a very solid right tackle option. I thought Trevor Gooseby, again, another stellar performance. It's just that group up on the middle that you got to clean up. And Texas has been working against it. And to their credit, and to that stat I threw out earlier, you throw for 100 or run for 109 yards or 106 yards through each A gap, according to PFF. Hey, that's a success. It's just about finding that consistency. 30 yards lost on 10 tackles for loss. It could be worse. 17 of those came on 2 sacks, but altogether, it's hard to be upset when you score 24 points and a half against a top 3 team in the country. That's the end-all, be-all for me. So I'll end with a B on the offensive line.
Coach, let's go to the defensive line. They did, this A&M game was the most productive run game in the SEC in conference play, averaging over 200 yards coming into the game. And they had their moments where they got some explosive plays, but, Coach, overall, I felt like they did about as good a job against the run as you could have asked them to. They do finish with 1 sack. But what's your grade for the defensive line?
Well, defensive line, there wasn't a lot of wow plays. I felt like from them. I felt like they were consistent. I felt like they were one of the reasons that we won the game. It's probably a B plus for me from those guys. I would have liked to seen us move the line of scrimmage a little bit more, but again, I feel like it was a solid performance against a quarterback that was in the talks for the Heisman.
Yeah, CJ, I'm kind of with Coach. I would say solid B for the defensive line. The Ethan Burke block field goal. We'll get to that when we talk about special teams. But Ethan Burke played a really good game. Kind of some of your unsung heroes. It just seemed like they're not going to show up on the stat sheet, but Cole Brevard, Hero Canoe, some of your interior defensive linemen. It just seemed like there were times when, to Coach's point, it might not have been consistently where they were reestablishing the line of scrimmage, but on some of those downs in the second half where they really needed to step up and get a push, they got it.
They absolutely did. That was the game of the life of Ethan Burke in the first half. That was fantastic, and he finished it off very strong as well. 9 tackles, a tackle for a loss, a blocked field goal. Throw him in the Trey Wisner category when it comes to playing against A&M. The best of Ethan Burke comes out. Justice Terry deserves a shout out from me as well.
Yeah,
I know he hasn't played a lot of snaps, but in big games when Texas trusts him. Immediate pressure on Marcel Reed to force the first interception in the red area in the fourth quarter. Fantastic stuff, right? He had 4 tackles on 7 snaps against Georgia. He's growing as well. I'm so excited for what he's going to do in an expanded role a year from now. But look, Ruben Owens, the lead back for A&M, only 3.7 yards per carry. It felt like every yard that they needed on the ground game, outside of Marcel taking off a couple times with his legs, was a struggle. And that's what you'd hope to see with this defensive front. Texas, when they got a lead, did not allow A&M to sit back in that play action, run the football first, and let Marcel kind of work off of it. And that's exactly what you have to do against the quarterback like that. Force him into dropbacks, force him to throw the football. They did just enough to take the run game out, and that's exactly what they needed to do. It's a B+ for me.
Coach, I'm interested to get your grade for the linebackers, because in the first half, Anthony Hill didn't play last night, no Ty Anthony Smith, but I thought they did a pretty good job of just kind of hanging in there in the first half. And then Ty Anthony Smith, I was one of those games where I was surprised, man. He only had 4 tackles because it seemed like he was around the ball dang near every snap in the second half. What was your grade for the linebackers? Yeah,
linebackers were more effective than I thought they were going to be. I was so hoping that Anthony Hill was going to play. I was very disappointed he didn't play, just because I thought he would make the difference in the game. But those guys stood up and played tough. They played physical. They played well enough for us, again, to beat the number 3 team in the country. And I thought it was a solid performance. It's a B for me for the linebackers.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go, B plus somewhere in there. CJ, what about you with the linebackers?
Yeah, I might be a little different than you guys on a couple of these. I thought it was an A- for the linebackers. Being down to basically 2 backers in the first half. Statistically, it wasn't a great game for Trey Moore, but I felt his impact more than what I did against Arkansas. I thought Leonga could be in your argument for player of the game defensively as well. That's stepping up when you need it, right? He's been a guy that has started for 2+ years now. For him to play the way that he did, leading the team with 11 tackles, fantastic. He really is a great run stopper. And then Ty-Anthony Smith, in only 2 quarters in that second half, I thought he was I thought he was everywhere. He was in the backfield time and time again. They, with very little margin for error there, I thought played a fantastic game considering what the circumstances were.
Coach, there's a lot to break down in the secondary, but I felt like one of the things that they really needed to do that I felt they did a good job of. And again, when you're facing a skill group as talented as the one A&M has on the perimeter, they're going to get some plays. But, Coach, I thought especially the second half, they did a really good job of just getting the ball stopped very, very little yards after the catch at points in the game where they really needed to have it.
Yeah, you got to remember this is an A&M team that's got one of the best receiver rooms in the country, top 3 anyway, probably I would say, and didn't make a lot of noise last night. So I think we're doing some things differently. I have to go back and watch the tape again to see what we're doing differently. But I thought it was a good performance. It's an A- for me for the secondary. I just was pleasantly surprised that we didn't have the big explosive plays from them that I was expecting.
And CJ, to Coach's point, I'd agree. And one of the reasons why I agree with Coach on the A-, you had some pretty critical possessions in this game where Cade Phillips goes down, Manny Muhammad was banged up. I mean, you had a combination of like Kobe Black, Warren Roberson, Wardell Mack. Those guys were out there playing high leverage snaps, and you were still able to keep their passing game under control.
Yeah, it's an A for me. You mentioned exactly that. Texas starts with Malik Muhammad and Cade Phillips and press man, and you're sitting there saying, okay, that's a ballsy idea, against these wide receivers. Are you sure you want to do that? Cade Phillips only plays 12 snaps. He goes down with a bum ankle, and you start looking around, you say, okay, can Texas sustain this level of press coverage on the outside and insert Kobe Black, who played 20 snaps, comes away with what I thought was 2 great hits, playing the football. Obviously, he gets the interception as well. And you sit there and say, okay, maybe they are built for press man. And they succeeded against probably the most dynamic duo of wide receivers that they've played all season long. And so, again, you look towards 2026 and you say, maybe if Cade Phillips returns, maybe if Kobe Black returns, maybe if Warren Roberson returns, you got the makings for a team that can play some great man coverage, not to mention who knows what happens with Grayson Littleton in the slot, right? So I was very, very encouraged, and I didn't think that press man was going to be the recipe for these guys, for this A&M offense, and they were fantastic. All 5 corners, secondary, Michael Taft, hat tip to you, ending your career at DKR with an INT.
No doubt. All right, Coach, I'll start with you. We'll kind of work backwards here. Your grade for the offense overall, Coach. We went and gave the individual position grades, but your grade for the offense overall.
Yeah, I think A- for me probably. Again, that might be a little bit high considering, we didn't throw the ball as much and as good as I thought we were going to, or that we could. But A- for me, good performance, beat a very good A&M team, undefeated team. Yes, sir.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm at. A-. CJ, what say you for the offense overall?
Yeah, it's a B+ collectively. For Sarkisian making the adjustments and sticking with it, it's an A+ for him. That's what you needed to do in a game like this, and hey, he's got the upper hand on Mike Elko for the second straight year.
Hey, Coach, we go to the grades for the defense overall. I could say kind of the same thing about PK's defense. Like, I know we've all had issues with kind of the bend but don't break mentality, but I've thought that drive that ended with the Michael Taff interception was a perfect example. You stopped the ball, you didn't give them yards after the catch, they burned a lot of clock, and then you get the turnover. It hadn't worked like that all year, especially in conference play, but, Coach, that's exactly how this defense is supposed to work.
Yeah, that's right. A good effort by the defense. My goodness, it's a B+ for me, just because, the standard that I know we can play at, and with, as CJ was pointing out, with basically two linebackers, I thought it was a gutsy overall performance. We made the stops we had to. That opening drive of the second half was huge. That was one that I felt like that we could tell the tale in this game.
100%.
Yeah, CJ, as you give your grade for the defense, we talked about it on Quick Reacts. I thought that's where Texas won the game. The offense started to get it together, but the defense, A&M's first 4 possessions, 3 3-and-outs, 4 punts, 1 first down in there. Just like Coach said, I think Coach said it best. Just a gutsy effort by a defense that was missing some key pieces at times.
Yeah, they changed the entire swing of this game coming out of halftime, and that was an area in which A&M could have doubled up, right? Touchdown before halftime, ball after halftime. You could easily have been 17-3, in a silenced DKR. Who knows what that game does after that? But 6 plays punt, 3-and-out, 3-and-out. That's how you start the second half, and Texas scored on all 3 possessions. Great showing, again, against a team that has scored a lot of points against a lot of really good teams. You hold A&M under 20 for the first time this year, it's an A for me.
Coach, special teams. You look at it last night, the totality of it. Bowmeister almost averaged 49 yards a punt. Brian Niblett had one, a 22-yard punt return. Obviously, the blocked field goal makes the Shipley makes his 2. What's your grade for the special teams?
A+. We gave up 1 punt return for more yardage than I think we should have. Other than that, they were almost flawless, really.
Is that the one? I think that was the one, Coach. That's the one where they were backed up, maybe, and they getting on the short field right before late in the first half. CJ, what's your grade for the special teams? Because I'm a coach. I'd go probably just solid A for special teams.
Yeah, I'll go A-. The punt return obviously put points on the board right before halftime. You only needed 42 yards for A&M. Texas still had 2 penalties on special teams. You had a block in the back. I think you had a holding or something additionally as well in there. But look, you take points off the board with the blocked field goal, and other than that, I thought it was very clear that A&M once again did not want to punt to Ryan Niblett, and as a result, there were some funky punts in there. But A-, you got to be pleased anytime you block a punt or block a field goal.
Coach, we're going to go around the horn here with final words. Just your final thoughts on whether you want to talk about the game, the playoff, whatever. The floor is yours.
Yeah, wow. I just couldn't be prouder of this staff and the way that they ended the regular season. How many times we talked about that Florida game coming back and haunting us. I don't know what the future is for this team in terms of playoffs or anything like that. I'd say it's a very long shot, but what a great way to end the regular season and the last game at DKR for these seniors in front of a great crowd, recruits. Any idea at all what the viewership was last night on that game?
Not yet.
Yeah, we'll probably get
Friday.
That like Sunday or Monday.
Yeah. Well, it was just a great shot in the arm. If nothing, I mean, of course, I'd love to make the playoffs. I think we're peaking at the right time. If you can call what we're doing peaking, I don't know that you could say peak because it's been a roller coaster all season. We think we're reached that plateau, and then we find a way to be inconsistent. But the momentum like this, it's like I always told our kids at track meets, we may not do that great. We're going to win the mile relay, because what does everybody go home remembering? That last race, mile relay. There's been some disappointing points we know this year in this football season, but to beat the Aggies, the day after they signed their coach to a 6-year contract extension, and the year that they have big plans. And I didn't hear any noise. I stayed away from all the noise this week, but apparently there was a lot of it being talked. So just great momentum, great shot in the arm for our program for recruiting. The Sark talk is silenced, and I'm just really excited that we came out with a win, because, when all else, you beat your rivals, and it's been disappointing, but it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah, CJ, as you give your final thoughts to Coach's point, I thought the poignant thing Coach said there, I don't know if Texas is peaking, but I said after the Arkansas game, hey, look, those first 3 quarters of the Vanderbilt game was about as good as it was going to get for this team. But the second half last night, it was an organizational win and about as complete as we've seen Texas look for a half of football against a quality opponent, maybe all year.
Yeah, and that's coming off of the heels of a couple of bad fourth quarters too. So again, credit to the defense for standing tall. Credit to the offense for figuring out how to put more points on the board. Real quick, I'll give myself an F- for my prediction before the game. Again, I'll own that one. But Coach, I think you're right. This team, for its ups and downs, and if y'all have been to Six Flags up in Arlington, was it the Judge Roy Scream, right? There's no loops, but it's a lot of this. Right. And I think Texas right now on its roller coaster, it's hitting as high its peak, if you will. Does that mean anything for the committee? We'll see. But, it's always nice when you're playing some of your best football late in the season. And who knows, all you need is a chance. If Texas does make the playoff, they'll be a dangerous team regardless of who they play. That's the thing now. You got to make the playoff. And right now, I think come Saturday afternoon, a lot has to happen. But this is a team that's got a lot of talent and a very bright future for 2026, no doubt.
CJ, based on his post-game comments, I like to think Sark printed your prediction out and plastered it all over the locker room. That's why the Longhorns gave a spirited performance. So that you can hang on to that. Hey, you helped. You did your part. The reverse jinx was intact and it worked. It's been fun doing grades for the regular season. We've got more to come in the postseason, so we'll get to that. But CJ, Coach, thank you guys for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to Allegiant Digital Marketing for sponsoring it. If you're not a member, over at ontexasfootball.com, you can get over to the site right now and sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access for $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our Texas coverage all year round. For CJ, for Coach, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, hook 'em.
Welcome.